guys, Team Bodybuilder Nick Wright, and I've been learning a whole lot on this whole new community that we've set up on Facebook. The link's in the info box. And one of the main things that pops up all the time on that site is the question regarding sets and reps, okay? What kind of volume should be trained at? What exactly is a rep? How many sets should be done? How do you know if you're overloading properly? And how do you know if you're overtraining, okay? How many should be done? Well, first I'm going to start off with going over what exactly is a repetition, okay? Now the word repetition just means to repeat, repetitive, repetition. But in this case we're talking about muscles and building them. So a repetition is just to contract the muscle to its fullest and commence a slow negative on the way down, okay? And to do so repetitively, hence the name repetition. This is what builds muscle, okay? First thing I want to go over is what exactly is a repetition, okay? In my book, a repetition has 3 basic steps, if you really want to generalize it. Alright, the first being the contraction from the beginning position up to the peak of the rep. Now, that means if you're in a curl position, stage 1 would be to bring it from arms extended up to a curl. If you're talking about shoulder pressing, that means you bring it from the bottom of the rep right up to the top, contracting your delts. Okay, if it's a back movement, that would be going from arms down and rowing it in, squeezing your back. That would be the first part of a rep, okay? Contracting it inward. Now, the next 2 steps, in my opinion, are the 2 most important ones. And that is the peak and the squeeze at the top of the rep. Alright, again, barbell curling, the squeeze would be once you get it up to the curl position, hold it there. Flex those muscles and squeeze the blood into it. You want to squeeze oxygen into your muscles by getting the blood to flow through them. That's what an anabolic state is, and that's how you build muscle, okay? Now, that goes, again, for anything. Shoulder pressing would be to squeeze at the top, alright? Now, the key with this is to never completely lock out when you're talking about pushing exercises, because that allows your muscles to rest on your joints. That allows the weight to rest on your joints, so it's ultimately giving your muscles a rest. And repetition means to repetitively put strain on them. So don't lock out if you're doing a pushing movement. The final and most important step of a repetition is the negative. Now that's when you're coming down from the top of the movement. Now you have to make sure you do this very slow and very controlled. This is when growth occurs in the muscle, okay? Now, you've already gotten it up, which is step 1, and you've squeezed, which is step 2. Now that's gotten the oxygen-rich blood into your muscle. Now, you have to break apart the fibers by letting it down slow and controlled, alright? You never, ever want to just drop it on a set, okay? So, again, even if you're talking about shoulder pressing or bench pressing, etc., once you get to the top of the rep and you've squeezed your shoulders, you want to let it down nice and slow so you're keeping the tension on the shoulders, and you'll notice a huge difference. You'll feel a lot more fatigue and you'll feel the burn in your muscles, and that's when growth is really happening. So 3 steps. Step 1, get it to the top of the movement. Step 2, squeeze. Flex the muscle at the peak of the movement. And step 3, a slow and controlled negative. That's how you do a real repetition. What is a set? A set is a group of repetitions done at once. Okay? If I'm curling, and let's say I'm able to squeeze out a good 10 reps of these, okay? And we just went over what reps were. And I get to my 11th one, and I can just barely get it. And my muscles are done, and by that 11th one, I'm completely cooked. That's 1 set, all right? Now, the choice comes down to how many sets do I want to do? How many times do I want to repeat that group of 11, or more, or less, all right? And there's numerous different types of sets. First type of set I want to talk about is the pyramid set. Now this is very important because it's going to be the first one you're going to want to do when you walk into the gym because it helps to warm up your joints, but it's also one of the most common ones even when you're not really focusing on doing it. Okay, now a pyramid of course starts out with the bottom row of bricks with the most bricks, and as you go up higher and higher, the rows have less and less bricks in them. Now this goes the same for reps. The first set you may start off with will be light, a warm-up set. 12, perhaps 15 reps to get your joints and your muscles nice and warmed up. Now the second set you do is going to most likely be your first working set, meaning it's not your first set, but it's the first set you're doing that's actually going to fatigue and have an effect on your muscles because your warm-up set is not. And that's when you're going to begin with a weight that you can handle pretty easily for about a good 10 to 12 reps. And it's not going to be close to a max out, but it's going to be able to fatigue your muscles more than a warm-up weight would. Second working set, third set total, will be higher in weight and less reps, just like the pyramid. Now, this is one where you're going to be able to only get about 8 reps. Shoot for the 8 range in this one, 8, possibly 10 if you can. Now, this is one where you're going to start to feel some fatigue. You may want to have a spotter around, but you should still be able to handle yourself pretty easily. You don't want to jump to too heavy a weight and too lower reps because it won't affect the muscles in the right way. Now, this would be your third working set, okay? Fourth total, including the warm-up. Now, you'll notice how I kept the same amount of weight on the bar. Now, too many people feel that you need to up the weight every time you move up a set in a pyramid set. That's not the case. Say we shot for a good 8 reps the last time. You may only get about 6 reps the second time pursuing this, okay? Now, if you got 8 to 10 before, shoot for a good 8 on this one. And you may only get 6 or 7. Even though it's the same weight, your muscle's now that much more fatigued because it's a whole nother set. Now, your final set is going to be the heaviest with the least amount of reps. This is going to be the top of the pyramid where the least amount of bricks are. But, of course, now that you're at the very top, there's the most weight on it. In this case, you can see we put 225 on. Now, of course, this is just for an example. The amount of weight you do is all dependent on where you're at in terms of lifting. Okay, now this is one where you should shoot for 4 to 6 reps, okay? Now, keep in mind, this extreme pyramid where you go up to this heavy should be kept at a free weight power movement. In other words, it should be your bench press. This should not be done if you're doing flies. If you're talking arms, this could be done for barbell curling. It shouldn't be done for concentration curls. All right, these are for the heavy compound mass movements. Okay, you shouldn't apply this kind of extreme for an isolation movement. All right, now in this one right here, you're going to make sure you want to have a spotter because it can be very dangerous without one. You should shoot for a good 4 to 6 reps, all right? Any lower than that, any lower than the 3 rep range is getting into powerlifting territory. And you're not going to be so much building mass as you'll be building strength and muscle density. Now, if you're bodybuilding here, you're of course going for the look of mass. So you're going to want to stick no lower than 4 reps in a given set, all right? This will be the top of the pyramid, your heaviest set. Okay, a very common set is called the drop set. Now, this should be done at the end of a workout or once in a while to switch it up and shock the muscles. But I wouldn't recommend doing it all the time because I feel to go down in weight is just an excuse not to work as hard. Of course, there are exceptions, and if you really want to shock and fatigue the muscles, here's how you do it. Okay.